One of the main figures in this story is King Herod. His family came from, not from Judea, but a territory south of Judea known as Idumea. The population there was a mix of Jews and non-Jews. They were people who were considered ethnically inferior, half-breeds by the Jews. His father, Herod's father, was appointed as king of Judea by the Romans. The Romans never trusted him. The Jews hated him, so he was in a rather difficult position. He made the mistake during the conflict between Antony and Cleopatra and Octavian or Augustus. Herod supported Antony and Cleopatra. They lost, of course, and Herod had to make a groveling speech to get in favor with Augustus and to retain his throne. Herod tried to win favor with people by building. He built the magnificent city of Caesarea to honor the Romans, and he expanded and decorated the temple in Jerusalem, hoping that that would make him more popular with the Jews. But of course it didn't work. Herod was always afraid of plots against him. As I say, nobody really trusted him or liked him. He ended up executing several of his children, some of his wives, anybody that he thought had any plans to overthrow him. The Emperor Augustus said he would rather be Herod's pig than his son, because Herod, as a Jew, would never kill a pig. So there's no wonder that Herod would have been concerned about reports when these guys show up and say, "We've come to see the king of the Jews." I will mention as a kind of a sidebar that we don't know how many wise men there were. When Christians began creating art, they needed somebody to carry the gold, somebody to carry the frankincense, and somebody to carry the myrrh. And so we end up with 3 wise men. All we know is that the word in the Greek in the New Testament is plural, so there were 2 or more. That's all we can tell. We also don't know their names, which were created by the early church. There is no reference in any other source to Herod killing any infants, which comes up a little bit later in this chapter. Renaissance artists like to show this huge slaughter of dozens or hundreds of children, but remember, Bethlehem is a small town, population of a few hundred, so there wouldn't have been any large number of children under 2 at any given time. Of course, if he killed even 1, it's a horrific crime, but still, we just don't know. We don't have any other source about this. Given Herod's record of bloodshed, it certainly wouldn't surprise anybody if we did find another reference to it. Herod's connection with Jesus' birth also raises a problem because, according to the calendar that we use, Herod died in 4 BC. You can look that up in any source. And so, if Jesus was born when Herod was king, then Jesus was born at least 4 years before Christ. I'll let you puzzle on that a little bit. The problem was created when, in the 6th century, when a monk named Dionysius tried to figure out when Jesus was born, and given the kinds of sources that he had to use, it's almost miraculous that he was even close, but he was off by a few years. The stories that we read in the 2nd chapter of Matthew may be based on historical incidents. No other source mentions the wise men or the slaughter of the innocents or anything like that. But what's frustrating is that we just don't have a lot of sources that tell us about these kind of things. It doesn't mean they didn't happen, but it just leaves us wishing we had more information. So let's read this passage now, Matthew 2, 1 through 12, as it appears on the insert in your bulletin. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. This is the word of the Lord.